Welcome to the studio review for chapter 20 of the Java curriculum. This is where we're going to actually use a tool called Postman to make requests to an API for coding events. This is a different application than the one you've been working on as part of your exercises. Modcode has actually provided something that's already set up with a REST controller to handle different types of requests for coding events. It's going to be fairly straightforward. Pretty much the events will just have a name and a description. And so we're going to practice making these different requests with Postman, and then at the end, we'll look at another way to do it. So the idea here is, if you wanted to request information from the database or make changes and updates to the database, if you don't have, some sort of form in a browser, that would be, pretty difficult to do, but it can be done. You can do it just with data. So making these requests to the API is going to give us the opportunity to do this without having to actually have an interface on a site. So the first step is to install Postman. I've had it for a long time, so I've got it right here. But when you get it installed, it'll look something like this. Perhaps not in dark mode. I have it in dark mode, but this is like the home screen, and then we'll see how to make some requests in a second. The next step is to actually fork and clone the source code from launch code. And this is where you're going to go. You're going to hit this fork button to create your own. I've already done that. And then, of course, I got, the thing and opened it up in IntelliJ. So once you've done that and you have it in IntelliJ, you can start it up. It looks like I have it started up, but I'm going to stop it and restart it. You do want to make sure you've got it running, and you can look at some of these files. They've got a controller here with handlers for each of the endpoints that they want to allow. And they also have a Java class over here for the event, for a model, and also a DTO that will help keep that information together that's needed, that name and description for each event. So you could take a look at all of this, but the whole point of an API is for the outside observer, is that they don't know what all of this is, and so you have to actually help them along. So now that we have this running, we could actually take a look at the documentation. So they have added this tool called Swagger, and that automatically creates documentation for API endpoints. So we can open this up. Now that the application is running, you'll notice that this is localhost 8080/Swagger UI/index HTML. So this tool will open this little page running directly off of our application, and it gives us the information about each of these endpoints. So we can do a GET request at /events, and we don't need to give it any information, but we will receive a response back. And when we do, it'll look something like this. It'll be an array of objects, JSON objects. And then they have, posts. What if you wanted to send a new event and make a post to this endpoint? You can do that. You need to have a request body. It needs to look something like this. And once it comes back, okay, then your, schema here, it's going to look something like this. And so on and so forth. We can go get just a single event by ID. We can delete an event by ID. We can patch. It means we can update part of the information for something by ID. And then they have the schemas here that you can see for the DTO and the event based on these models that we have in place. So the DTO just packages together the name and the description. The entire event also has the ID once it has been stored. So that's really helpful. This kind of documentation is super helpful for understanding from the outside what information you have access to, what the different endpoints are, and different request types that you can make. Okay, so for each of these, we're going to practice using each of these endpoints. And so the very first thing to do is to make a request just to see what all of the events are, right? Get that array of events, of multiple events. And you're going to say, well, are there any events? Have anything been saved? And the answer to that is no. But let's set this up just so you can learn how to set up a request in Postman. So from here, if this is where you are, you want to go to this, start with something new and say create new, and then just choose HTTP request. That's what we're interested in. And it opens up this tab, and it defaults to GET, which we can certainly change this to one of the other request types if we want. For now, we are going to do GET, and we want specifically to make a request to this endpoint, localhost 8080/events. So I'm just going to copy that and put that right here in the field here. And then we can go over here to the headers, and it says that there are 6 headers already, but some of them are hidden. We can look at those. It has like some default headers, and we have an accept header here, but launch code is specifically asking us to use application/JSON. So what you can do in a case like this is actually put it in yourself like this, accept application/JSON, and what happens, you'll see this has a note now that says this is a duplicate header and will be overridden by the accept header added by you. So instead of saying it's going to be anything with ****, it's going to use this one instead. Okay, and I can hide those. So we have our header. We don't need a body because all we're doing is making a GET request, and we just are going to send this. So keep in mind, before we can do this, the application does have to be up and running. So make sure that you've built it and then done the boot run so that it's up and running. Okay, so I'm going to send, and I get a response. The status over here, you can see, is 200 okay, which means it was successful. And this body is set to be pretty and JSON, so it's definitely the right format, but all we get is an empty array. And that's exactly what we're expecting because we have not added any events. That's going to be the next step. Okay, so we got this back, got that response back. Everything is as expected. If you do have some sort of error here, it's either that you forgot to start the application or you mistyped the URL somehow. So just, check that out. But if you did it the way that I did it, it should work. So let's create an event. We're going to use the exact same endpoint /events, but this time we're going to use a post request, and we're going to have a different header. Content type is application JSON because we need to actually send a JSON body. So we're going to go ahead and set that up. So I want to save this GET request here so that we can use it again. I'm going to start a new tab, and I'm going to change this to post. I am going to put in the same endpoint /events, and then I'm going to come over here to headers and add content type application JSON. And then in the body, I need to change this to raw. And then right here, it lets you choose, and you'll notice that it already assumed we wanted JSON. So I'm keeping that. And then we'll just paste our JSON right here. So launch code gives us something to work with. I'm just going to copy it right here to my clipboard, and then I can paste it. And it is a simple JSON object that has 2 keys, name and description, and 2 values for each key. So let's send it. And we get back exactly what we were expecting. We get back an object that now has an ID as well as the name and description we gave it. So that's the whole event, status 200 okay. And so now if we go over to here, we could say, okay, last time we checked this, the state of that application, that was that there were no events. If we run this again, now we see that the state has changed, and we have one object, one event that has been added. So we could come over here and we could update this and say, another event. And we could say, you know, more fun with friends and coding, because I am not feeling super creative at the moment, I'm afraid. Okay, so this is our post. We're going to send this and it comes back ID 2 and we have the name and the description. So now we can go back over here to our get request and make this again. And now we see we have two objects. Okay, so this is how this works. We can keep reaching out to these different endpoints and saying, give me information. I want to give you information. And it will update things on the back end. And then we can see the results when we ask for it to show us the update again. Okay, so that's those requests. If you were to send a bad request, let's say you have something malformed like this, where it's got a key but no value and the comma is missing, we can copy this and come over to our post request here, and I'll put in the bad information and send it. And we get 400 bad requests. This request cannot be fulfilled due to bad syntax. So anything 400 means it's definitely our fault. It's not a problem on the server. So it gives us a timestamp, the 400 status, it says bad request. And then it gives us this stack trace, and it says JSON parse error, unexpected character, : and you could see that up here, you know, Postman is showing us, hey, I was expecting a comma to be the next thing I saw, and I'm seeing a : because there's no comma up here. And we could see that here too. If we read down through this and look at the end, it says, was expecting comma to separate object entries. So that definitely is a problem. And this message will help you get to the bottom of it if you're not clear. So we can say, oh yeah, I needed to actually have, you know, something here that was missing. Okay. What if you wanted to get just a single event and not the whole list of events, and you know what the ID number is? We can do that. We can do a get request that goes to /event/ID number. And we're going to use the same type of request header as we did with the first call to events. But we're going to specify that ID for something that already exists. So let's create a new request tab here. It's going to be get, and it's going to have the same endpoint, but we're going to say /1. And we can come here and add accept an application JSON. And we don't need a body because we're just doing get. So let's just send it. All right, and we get back our object that matches the ID of 1. If I change it to 2, since I know we have 2 of them in there right now, we get 2. If I change it to a number we don't have, say 5, I get nothing. So it says 200 okay. They don't have any sort of error handling for if it doesn't exist, but that's okay. The fact that we didn't get any data at least tells us that you know, it's doesn't exist. But yeah, but if we do have a valid ID number, we do get a response back, and that's what we're looking for. Okay, so what if we wanted to update an event? What if we wanted to change the name or the description? We can do that. We can use the exact same endpoint. So let's use this one where we're going to change event number 2. But this time we're going to do a patch. And patch is a little bit like put, but it allows you to do partial updates. So we're going to give it the information that we want. So now we've got this name and description that's actually a lot more descriptive than what I had before. So we're going to go to the headers and say content type is application/JSON. And then we'll go to the body and give it raw and JSON, and then give it the information that we want. So we're saying we want to change the name and the description. So we're going to give you both of them. And we'll patch to this for specifically item number with the ID of 2. So we'll send it, and we get back the updated object. It has an ID of 2. Its name is now Linux Fundamentals, and the description is an event for Linux enthusiasts. Okay, and if we go over here now to the get request for a single thing, and we look up number 2, instead of another event and more funds with front-end coding, we're going to see our new information. It has been updated. And here again, with this one, we can resend this and get back both of these events, and we can see that those details have been changed. Okay, what if we wanted to delete one? We can most certainly do that. This time we are going to use the same endpoint as we have been for the other ones where we specify an ID number. We just want to make sure to use that HTTP method of delete, but we don't need to have any sort of special headers for this. And we're not expecting that it's going to return any sort of body. It's just going to do it. If it exists, it will delete it. So we're going to create another tab here for delete and put in that same URL here for /2. We'll say we're going to go ahead and delete the one with ID of 2. So I'll do that. I get 204 no content. The server successfully processed the request, but it is not returning any content. So we're good, and then we can prove it by coming over here and rerunning this, and we're going to find that the only one that exists now is the one with the ID of 1. So we definitely were able to delete it. So let's see what these bonus missions are here. Okay. If you complete the studio early and you want some additional practice, you can do this. The first one says, explore the API source code using your IDE debugger to step through the request and response process. Okay, so we can do that. I just need to stop running it here, and I need to start it up in debug mode, but I want to set a breakpoint. So let's do a post. I'm going to put a breakpoint right here. So it'll stop when it's getting ready to execute this return. And let me start it up in debug mode instead. Give it a second to get going. Thinking about it. All right, Tomcat started. Here we go. So now I could come over here to Postman, and let's go back to our post here. Let's fix this so that we go back to the original. Let's see, let's do this one. Oh, that is that one. Ah. Who's this one? Okay, Linux fundamentals, an event for Linux enthusiasts. Let's put this one back in. Go ahead and send it. It brings us to the code. It brings us down here to the debugger console, and we can immediately see that it is, you know, at the point where it's about to execute this, and we can see that event DTO that it's receiving as the request body here actually has those values attached to it. So the request came from Postman, arrived here, and was, you know, intercepted here, and then it's got the data, and we're just saying, okay, we're about ready to create this event by pulling that data out of the event DTO with get name and get description, those getters. And so all I have to do is step over it. So I'm going to do that, step over. And now we see that it comes over here, and it's in, you know, another file that's just kind of one of those behind the scenes file that runs when Spring is doing its thing. And you can, you know, kind of go in here and look at this, but it's not going to mean a lot to us because this is all stuff that just happens behind the scenes. Why don't we just go here and say run to cursor, which basically I don't have any other breakpoints, so it means it's just going to finish. It's going to go to the end. And you can see over here, it says sending request, but it has not received because we're not done yet. Once we actually allow it to finish here, we immediately see that it completes. We get a status of 200. It says it took 1 minute and 28 seconds because we were, you know, debugging it. And we got our response. And so it gave us an ID of 1. Now that's interesting. You say that wasn't ID of 1. What happened to the original one? Well, we restarted the application, which means because it's not a persistent database and it just has a store where it's just temporarily collecting them, we had to start over. If we go now and send this, we're going to only have the one, and that's okay. We are going to look in a second at a way to send this without using Postman and add another one to the collection. So let's go. You can play around with this as much as you would like in debug mode. Feel free to do that. I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to go back to here and take my breakpoint off, and I'm going to start it back up in regular mode. Get it up and running. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and send this again so that we have it in the, oh, wrong one, post. I want to send the post. Okay. All right. So now if I go and I look, sure enough, we've got it. Okay. Let's look at the next bonus mission. It says, try consuming the API from the command line using the bash curl program or PowerShell invoke REST method. Now I'm on a Mac, so I'm going to use curl. So if you go to this documentation, you can see here that you can use curl as a command in the terminal and give it a URL for it to reach out to and make this request. It also has options. It's got all these flags, like if we want to send data along, we can use /d. If we need to set a header, we can use, actually, I don't think that one's on here. If we want to set a header, we can use /H. If we want to, make sure to specify the type, we can use dash uppercase X, I think, for that. So there's all these things that you can do to send data and make requests to the server. The simplest request is just to do curl with some sort of input that's just going to send you information. So let's try that. We can come over here to a terminal. It does not matter where you are. You can do this from anywhere. And I'm just going to say curl. No, I need to do http:// localhost 8080/events. Okay. And we're just going to see, and we get back an array that has one JSON object in it. ID of one, name of Linux fundamentals, and description is an event for Linux enthusiasts. Cool. All right. What if we wanted to add a new event? And I'm going to go back to the instructions so I can borrow this other, this one. We're going to add this one back. So I'm just going to copy that and we'll come back. And this time we're going to need some of those flags. So I'm going to say curl dash uppercase H and say content type is application /JSON. Notice that I've got that entire thing, the header key value pair is in quotes there. I'm going to say /uppercase X and post. You actually don't have to specify the method if you're doing -D for data, because it assumes, but it's okay to do it. So it's going to assume that I'm posting because I'm about to add this data. So with the -D, make sure that your JSON is in single quotes. So I'm just going to paste this in right here and then end a single quote after that. And then I can put my actual endpoint in localhost 8080/events and hit enter. Okay, and we get the response we were expecting. We were expecting to get an object back that had an ID, a name, and a description. So this, works the same way that it does with Postman. You're just doing it in the command line. So now if I do my original curl, where I just go to see the events, now I have two events. My array has two different objects in here. So that's how you can use curl to do some of these things without even using Postman. So definitely play around with all of this. I have used both of these, curling and Postman especially, a ton in my time as a front-end developer, because a lot of my job, it isn't just about, with the HTML and the CSS and making everything look great on the page. A lot of it is wiring up the data, and you have to make these calls. And so a lot of time is spent testing, how does the data come back? Do I have the right endpoint? And I use Postman a lot to test those things before I actually put them into a front end application, so that it can just happen behind the scenes. And then the data can be, displayed on the page, or the update can be made, from a form on the page or whatever. So I hope this has been helpful. And I was going to say I'll see you in the next one, but this was the last one. So last one of Unit 2. Thanks for hanging in with me. And I will see you on YouTube, I guess.